From day one, we are told who we should be, how to live, and what's acceptable. Before we even have a chance to discover ourselves, our society has already drawn those lines for us. But what happens when those lines are keeping us from knowing and embracing who we truly are? Welcome to Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox, a podcast about unpacking and unlearning everything that's kept you from living as your true self. Through honest conversations about your internal emotional landscape, sexuality, coming out later in life, relationships, and the journey to self-acceptance, we break free from the boxes we never chose. Hello, Angie. Welcome to Unbox Yourself. So lovely to have you here.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here, Sam. Thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. It's lovely to meet you. So I would love to hear a little bit more about what you're struggling with. I think I've heard a little bit so far. I know that you're 58 and that you came out about 2 years ago. What is it that you are struggling with at this point in time that you would like a little bit of help with?
Well, to be honest, Sam, the first thing I want to say is I'm so excited to be here because I have heard you before. I heard of you through the Ultimate Festival, and your program is amazing and it's really helped me. And if this helps one person, I'll be so chuffed. And folks, listen to this program because it's brilliant. I've got some areas that I struggle with. It's all to do with I initially came out when I was at school. My best friend and I had a relationship at school, and our parents found out, and I ended up being put into conversion therapy. I was 18 at that time.
Okay.
It was horrific. It was brutal. And because of that, I then felt I couldn't be gay. I couldn't be the lesbian I was. So I even went and got married and everything. But the things that I've come up with the last 2 years, I suddenly thought, do you know something? I have lived my life as a lie for so many years, for 40 years, and I don't want to do that anymore, Sam. So the areas that I'm struggling with are related to the indoctrination of the religious conversion therapy, the feelings of guilt and shame, the feelings of fear, and huge feelings of grief and loss.
Yeah, very valid. So tell me a little bit about how long you were in the conversion therapy at 18. I know you went in and
Yeah, I was there for 10 months. Um, and it was a case you got up at 7:30, you got your breakfast, by 9 you were in your first class, you were having Bible lessons of every verse that basically condemned you. And you would have that till 12, then you would have lunch. Then at 1 o'clock you'd have work duties, which you would work manual work of some sort till 5. Then you would have tea, and then you go back to that kind of not online, but continual conversation from 6 until 10, and then you were put back to where you slept. And if you, I was happy with my sexuality. I didn't want to change, but if you didn't change, there were punishments. The first punishment was that you would be denied food and water for 36 hours. And if that didn't work, which it often didn't for me, then you were given more manual duties, really hard digging holes and in the snow and stuff. And then if that didn't work, well, there was always the beatings. So it
Mm.
was brutal. And in the end, at 10 months, they were in this locked enclosure, so there was no way out. But actually, at 10 months time, I actually did manage to escape, and I actually left the area and never went back to that area because of it. But it has had a whole lasting effect on me, Sam.
Wow, that is so intense. I have always thought of conversion therapy as you go to a therapist, in the same way you would go for therapy once a week or twice a
Yeah.
week, something like this. I didn't know that conversion therapy is you live there and it's 24 hours a day.
and it was very much biblical doctrination. And I am a Christian. I love God. It's nothing. Again, God wasn't the cause of this. This was people's. It was the 80s, and it was people's understanding and hatred of anything to do with homosexuality.
Yeah.
I met people with AIDS there, and they were brutally treated, even worse. So, yeah, I don't know if they do conversion therapy anymore. I really hope not. It's illegal now in Britain to do it, which is great news. But unfortunately, as I'm sure you probably know, some of your listeners know, it does still happen.
Yeah. Yeah. So you escaped, and then you said you ended up marrying a man.
I did. I escaped. I went and studied in Birmingham. I was from Scotland. I went to England to study and then met someone, and there was pressure. There was a lot of pressure. Oh, you need to get married. You're 26 now. You need to get married. It's time to get married. It's getting too late. And I knew that I didn't love him. I certainly didn't want to go to bed with him. But we did. We got married, and it was pretty horrific. I had absolutely no attraction to him at all, sexually at all. I mean, I thought he was attractive, but not in a partner sense. And that marriage continued till we actually had a child through donor sperm. When I was 32, I had my son, and at that point it was time to call because it was living a lie, and I couldn't cope with it. And then after that, I felt again the pressure of in Britain, if you were gay and you were getting divorced and you wanted custody of your child, being gay wasn't a good thing to go to a sheriff court with. So I then spent the next 23 years living a lie. And it was 2 years ago when my son was 23 that I decided, do you know this? I almost died 2 years ago in an accident, and I've just decided I've had this. Whatever my life brings, I'm going to be me, and I'm not in a relationship, but finally I'm embracing my sexuality. But I'm not quite sure how to do that. I'm not quite sure. I feel a bit lost.
Yeah, that's quite a story that you've lived. So you shared a little bit on your application to be on the show about some feelings coming up of guilt and shame, and then also a little bit about grieving and loss. So I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit to what's coming up for you with those feelings.
Yeah, the guilt and shame is, I guess, I mean, as a Christian, I know that God loves everyone, and that He didn't say love everyone except homosexuals, lesbians, or gay men. He didn't say that at all. He said love everyone. But in my head, I still have that message of being 24-hour days communicated, told you are a sinner, you are going to hell, you are evil for being gay. And I suppose the thought of what holds me back sometimes is feeling the guilt and shame and fear of going into a relationship. What if I go into a relationship and I feel condemned by that God will judge me as someone evil, that people will look at me and say, you are just awful what you've done. And I do carry the guilt and shame. I also feel guilt and shame for not standing up for what I believed. I stood up enough to go through the whole beating things. But I've lived a life for 23 years. In fact, longer than 20, so 40 years. And to be honest, Sam, that's where the guilt and shame lies. The guilt and shame lies in the fact of living a life for 40 years, pretending to be someone I wasn't, and denying the possibilities that could have been.
Yeah, very valid. So I want to say a couple things. The first thing I want to say is you had this early experience when you were in your teens, and you weren't feeling any shame about it when it was happening. You felt comfortable, you felt good, it felt right. And then you were placed by your parents on this path where you were told this is so wrong, and then that continued really intensely as you went through your conversion therapy. You got that message 24 hours a day, along with physical harm that was coming to you because of who you were, right? And then pressure from society when you got out, which is you're getting old, you got to do the thing, you have to get married. How could you live this way? And you did that and you ended up having a child. And it sounds to me like because you had the child and then got divorced because you realized you just could not stay married, it did not work for you. You needed to be discreet with your sexuality to protect your status as a parent.
That's right.
So that's that's a little bit different than just hiding yourself because you're hiding yourself. Like there was a reason why you had a person who was completely dependent upon you.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah. And so not until he was 23 years old, am I hearing you say, so 23 years was you really protecting your child, and finally your child was old enough and you said, okay, like I'm done. I'm going to now, and this accident, whatever it was, sometimes we need something to really shake us up to say, that's it. I just have to live my truth. Right.
Yeah, that's cool. Absolutely right, Sam.
Yeah. So I want to just talk a little bit about guilt and shame as emotions, and give you a little bit of a way to think about them. So the way I think about guilt, shame, and anxiety is that those are inhibitory emotions. What I mean by that is these emotions, they're kind of like, they're like blankets. They're like heavy blankets, and they keep you away from whatever your core emotions are. When I speak about your core emotions, I'm speaking about those that you're born with. When you come out of the womb, because you're born and you're human, you have an emotional system and a nervous system that is all wired, right? That is your survival set. And when we're born out of the womb, we all have the same core emotions. Shame is not one of them. Guilt is not one of them. And anxiety it's more of a signal. It's not really an emotion. So I like to think of your guilt and your shame as places that kind of keep you stuck away from whatever your core feelings are. Now I'm going to name what your core feelings are, like what you're born with. So there's just 7 of them. So it's joy, sadness, fear, anger, disgust, excitement, and sexual excitement. Those are the 7. Now we're born with those, but then we grow up in families and in societies and in communities that tell us which ones are okay, which ones are not okay, right? I like to think about in the animal kingdom, they don't learn that. They don't have to socialize to something that's not aligned with what they were born with. But as humans, we grow up in these societies. So for example, you're born female for you. So, you have to be pleasant, and you have to be joyful, and you have to look nice, and and you can't be angry. Because, women are not meant to be angry, and it's unattractive, and so over time you get rinsed of these core emotions that are really part of our emotional system. And instead we have certain things like guilt, shame, and anxiety where we can really stay stuck for a long time. And it doesn't give us access to what we're actually really feeling.
Yeah, and there's so much need to be compliant as a woman as well, isn't there? We're expected to comply with certain rules.
Yes. Those rules that society and that religion and that the patriarchy and that heteronormativity and all of it. There's tons of rules. And I mean, there's also rules for men. We're not the only ones that have rules. They also have some rules. You're not allowed to cry. You're not allowed to be emotional. You're not allowed to be sensitive. So it goes both ways, right? But there are these rules and ways you're supposed to show up, and they do cause a lot of emotional distress in the way that they keep you away from your core emotions, which are actually meant to feel and experience. So I'm going to just ask you for a moment just to think about which of those emotions that I named, those 7, and if you want me to name them again, I can, but which of those emotions do you feel like you might not have spent a whole lot of time giving air to?
Definitely the last one. I can't remember the second word. It was a sexual expression or something. Definitely that, because that has been even the idea of masturbation is something that's only come to my senses in the last year because of the message of it's sinful, it's something that's done in the dark, and the idea of actually being able to give yourself self-love is,
And
I
pleasure.
mean, I'd never heard of that before till actually last year.
Okay. So sexual excitement, which is something that we are born to experience, it is part of our emotional system, is one of the feelings that you haven't had much chance to connect with, and it's very
Mhm.
new.
It
And,
is.
yeah. And then I know you also brought up feelings of grief. The majority of the women I work with are in their 50s,
Mhm.
and they have a lot of grief and loss and sadness about
Yeah.
how many years they have spent not connecting to their authentic selves.
And that's exactly how I feel. It's a sense of loss of that, the denial of having been able to be in love with someone, the denial of being able to explore sexual desire, the inability to explore my own body, the feeling that I can't, I until last year I didn't even feel comfortable touching my body. And all of that gives me a sense of grief. Like thinking, my goodness, I'm 58. All those years that I lost,
Mm,
and all those years that it feels that were wasted doing other things that actually may have been correct compared to in society's views, but actually have brought me no happiness as a woman. But instead of this deep feeling of grief, loss, and actual pain, physical pain of that grief.
yeah. And I'm going to say that that grief and the grieving is important to allow. And I know it's painful and it doesn't feel good. And we want to get past it and we want to feel the good stuff, you know? And I want to say both can be true at the same time, like that there can be space for this exploration, even if it's with self-love with yourself to start and having pleasure with yourself and also grieving, that both can happen at the same time. There does need to be an allowance for the grieving, though, because that is
Right.
really, you have to feel your way through and out the other side of it.
Yeah, I mean that's such a wise view, and I think also in part of that there's still the struggle of people who I have known for so long, who are now hearing that I'm actually a lesbian, who are still coming back and saying you can't do that, and I'm thinking yes I can. I'm 58. I can do what I want,
Yes, you can. You absolutely can do what you want.
and part of that grieving is actually losing friends.
Yes. And, I mean, this is a tricky place. And this is something, as I've been interviewing women to be on this show, I've been hearing the same thing. Actually, everybody so far has had some kind of a religious background that has
Yeah,
really interrupted their development into themselves. And all of them have this fear of losing community and what has felt like family for them. And, at the same time, can this person really be a true friend or somebody who really loves you if they only love you for the way they want you to be? They don't love you for who you actually are.
No, of course not. And it's funny, isn't it? We have friends in our life that we suddenly realise, actually, what did they give me? What support did they give me? Or and you suddenly realise that you're doing all the giving. And actually, I discovered that there were three friends who said, "Well, it's either gayness or being a lesbian or me." And I said, "Well, I'm going to be true to myself." And actually, in some ways, it was a grief to lose them. But actually, the grief was the feeling of, what was I doing as a friend for all these years when actually they never ever accepted me for who I was?
Yeah, that's another one of the things that we learn, which is, I mean, I'm going to call it like a little bit of martyrdom, which is, our worthiness comes through helping others
Yeah.
and sacrificing ourselves. And that's how we know that we're good and that we're worthy in the world. And
Mhm.
so that's a brilliant awakening for you to see, like, I've been there for this person and I've supported them, but they have not been there for me. And now, as I am coming into myself and they're coming to me, they're not saying, I love you, Angie, no matter what. You're my friend. I
Yeah.
support you in whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
Yeah. So there's more loss, right? And it gets overwhelming with all this loss. It's like it's everywhere you turn.
That's right. And you spoke about the word community. My community, which wasn't huge, but it was reasonable, has now dwindled to two really close friends. And you think, wow, is that all that I was worth in life? Was that actually I only had two true friends who love me, who accept me as I am, and that's you're encouraging me to go and explore.
I love that. And I want to say, two people who really love you, that's enough. I mean, that's enough. That is something. That is really something solid to hold on to. So I'm so glad you have those two people that know you're out. They know about your sexuality and they love you. That is so beautiful. I mean, that is something to really celebrate. The other people, it's it's reflective of them. Like
Yeah.
their way of treating you is just about them. It's not about you. It shows their limitations.
It does, and actually, I felt quite sad for them because actually, what they're doing by judging me is that they're almost judging themselves. And that's really sad because actually, in the end, they're the ones who are losing out on the opportunity to grow and to develop and to love.
Yes. I did not grow up with any religious belief system in place. It wasn't like, because you're Jewish, you believe this. There was nothing. So it's very hard for me to understand this feeling that I'm hearing about coming from these religions, which is what you're talking about. People are not encouraged to be, I'm going to use the word curious. Curiosity is a bad thing. Don't look too far. Don't look into the corners and into the holes. Just stay safe. Don't ask questions. And there isn't this ability to grow and evolve because this, from the outside, this is the way it is.
And it's so sad because I think it's more as the evangelicalism goes up to fundamentalism and charismatic churches, that's where you really see it, where you become a Christian and they expect you to behave in a certain way that actually they've dictated, not God or not the Bible, but they have dictated. And what was interesting, I found, was that when I left the church that I was in, was that no one came to say, "Are you okay?" And what I saw was that people were hurting who were being said, well, if you can't be joyful all the time and lift your hands up and praise, there's no place for you here. And actually, what that means is that it becomes a religion that is uncaring instead of a faith that is loving.
Yes. So sad and so limiting. And
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I'm so sad for young women and young men who are at an age where they want to explore what it means to be male, female, gay, straight, trans, whatever. everyone should have the ability to explore that. And actually, what happened, particularly in the 80s and particularly now within the very high evangelical churches, is that instead of being allowed to explore their sexuality, what they're being told is to subdue and crush their sexuality and comply into what's expected. And there are so many people probably who are in marriages or who are in relationships that they never ever should have been in. And I find that really, really sad.
Yes. And also a lived experience for you.
It is, but I think they talk about sin in those churches. I think that's even more sinful. That is the sin to deny people the chance to be who they are.
Yeah.
Because God created us as we are, male and female, He created us. And it doesn't. Do you think when I was born and I decided that I was gay, that that was God's mistake? God doesn't make mistakes. And I think what happens are these churches are led by men, so I'm using the men freely, who are men who aren't actually looking at the biblical message. They're taking verses completely out of context and drawing up dogma related to that verse that suits their biases, that suits their prejudices.
Yeah. It's a crime.
It is.
Yeah. So back to your personal experience. I know that you shared being at a place where you'd like to, so you have these two friends that love you, and it sounds like you lost the larger community, but you also realized those were not your people,
That's right.
right? And it sounds like you would like to build more community and also explore what it would be like to maybe date or get into a relationship.
Yeah, I would really like to explore community. Unfortunately, where I live in Scotland is a very small community. There's not many people here, but I would, and the online platform is great for that. That I'd love the idea of meeting people online. And I have this fear, Sam, that I've left it too late. I would love to meet someone. I would love to be in a loving sexual relationship, but I'd also like the opportunity to actually, if I want to sleep around, why can't I? If I want to go and date someone and just sleep and then say, oh, okay, you're not the right person for me, I don't see that that should be wrong. But I think because that's a normal thing that people do. But I have this fear, Sam, at 58, have I left it too long?
I hear you. And this is a really common fear for, really for everyone. I don't know. I mean, I'm going to say no. For my own, I'm 56 and I'm single, so I'm hopeful that I'll still meet somebody. There's a lot of emotion around this that really builds this up for you. Meeting somebody, dating, does it work? Does it not work? Do they like you? Do they not like you? How do you act? What if you get rejected? How is that going to feel? How are you going to handle that? So these things that are coming up for you, I think really come up for everybody around dating and possibly getting into a relationship. They're really normal feelings to have. But I think what makes them scarier and harder is that there's all this sort of built up time that it hasn't happened. So there's kind of like more pressure behind it. It's like if it doesn't happen now, if it doesn't happen with this person that I actually kind of like this person, but if it doesn't, what if they don't like me? Or what if we start dating and then after 3 months they decide they don't like me, then what was it all for? And, really kind of, I don't know, just sort of really losing hope.
Yeah, totally. And it's so different because when we're in our late teens, our 20s, we're dating people, and you're not worried if a relationship lasts 6 months. But at 58, I thought, well, if I have a relationship that lasts 9 months and it ends, I've wasted 9 months. But actually, have I wasted 9 months? I don't know. But it's just, I think it is an age thing. I think it's also the fact that it is difficult when you meet a woman that you really want to be with. Walking down hand in hand in the street in Scotland is not something that you often see women do. I want to break the rules.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. I mean, there's something very exciting about breaking the rules, without a doubt. And also, I think safety is a factor that I think about. I have had long-term relationships, and depending on where I am in the world with my partner, I always think about if it's safe or not, which is something that is important to still think about. But it
Yeah,
is exciting when you are somewhere where, no harm is going to come to you, to be able to be free in that way.
yeah,
And
definitely.
and the other pieces I want to say is, I want to give you something to hopefully shift your mindset a little bit on this. If I were to meet somebody that I liked and we dated for 6 months, 9 months, 2 years, whatever it is, and then it ended, that was a waste. That is not a waste. That is your growing and experiencing what it is like to be in a relationship with that particular person. And they're going to bring their personality and their characteristics and their past with them. And you're going to come in with yours, and you're going to see how that dynamic plays out between the two of you, and how you show up in good times and not good times. And you're going to learn a lot, so that if for some reason it is not the person for the rest of your life, you're going to have that gift of that relationship that taught you so many things. So every experience you have from today forward, with yourself, with your body, with another person, with new community, all of that is your school. Like, you are learning every minute about yourself.
What an amazing way to look at it, the fact that it's okay to date, it's okay to discover what it's like to be with someone, and to explore relationship, and to explore sex together, making love and everything. And I think you're right. I think I have fallen into the trap of thinking, well, I the pressure of thinking, well, I've got to find someone now. Actually, you're right. It's all about a learning relationship, and everyone you're with for a reason.
That's right. And you're going to learn something. And should it not last? I mean, honestly, it's how I've gained so much information. I have had a lot of relationships, and I learn about relationship dynamics and other people, and how I show up, and what works for me, and what I need, and what doesn't work for me. It's just been amazing schooling on relationships. So I like you thinking about not this pressure, like, oh my God, I'm 58. It's getting too late. I'm never going to meet the person. And when I do meet that person, I got to lock them down. This has got to be the person forever. No,
Yeah.
this is just an experience. This is a place where you get to just try out being fully who you are, which is totally new for you.
It is, and it's both exciting and terrifying at the same time.
Yes, which I would like to encourage you to feel. So I
Okay.
want you to feel that fear. And I'd like you to think through all the really scary things that could come, that could happen.
Do you know, some of the scary things actually relate to sex. I am, would you believe, still perimenopausal because I'm still having periods. But my fear is, what if I'm rubbish in bed? What if, because I am menopausal, that my body doesn't work the way I want it to work, that I have that bit of extra weight that I didn't used to have. What if they find my body repulsive? And it's funny because it's more that angle of it than the social angle that I'm scared of. That level of intimacy to be with them. And it's not just about sex, Sam. It's about sharing your life, sharing your secrets, sharing your dreams, sharing your hopes and aspirations. And I guess it's a fear of one being rejected, but also I have a terrifying fear that if I took all my clothes off, they would just turn around and laugh. And that is really, really terrifying, Sam.
Yeah, I hear the same thing from many people that I work with. So you're not alone in your feelings and in your fears. And, I think this also comes down to what we have learned in society, which is how we're supposed to look. And that is everywhere. And, when we're in our 50s and, regardless if we've had kids or not had kids, like we're in our 50s. Like we've been in bodies for 50 years. They don't look like when we were 20, right?
True.
So, yeah, so there has to come. I mean, it's really hard. I really hear this from so many people, but I think there has to come a place where you, as you said, self-love, like just starting to be able to touch your body and whatnot, right? And some self-pleasure and masturbation, and a place where you look at your body and like what it has done for you. Like this is your temple. This is the place your body has allowed you to live these years and to get through these difficult times. Like it is something to really cherish. It's not about a specific shape it's supposed to be. That is what comes from misogyny and, the patriarchy and what society tells us. That is not what your body is about. It is not about fitting into the box of what they say is okay. So I think it really comes to this place where we have to actually love our body and all of its shapes that may not look like any of those things, so that we can feel comfortable being with somebody else and sharing our body with them.
I think that's a really good point and a really helpful point, because I guess in my head, I'm thinking, how can I expect someone to love my body when I don't love my body?
There, that's it.
And I don't. I, I don't actually have mirrors in my house because I find the thought of looking at my body quite repulsive. It's not that I'm huge or anything like that, but I don't look how I looked a few years ago, and I struggle with the idea of someone actually wanting to touch me and actually wanting to love me, because I'm thinking, you don't know what's under the clothes. And when you do see, you're going to laugh and go, ha, away you go, and off they go. And I struggle with that. And I guess it's a fear of rejection, but also, I suppose in some ways maybe it's a feeling of hatred towards my own body, how it has, you're right, it has looked after me for 58 years, but I also feel like it's let me down in the last few years as well.
Yeah, and because we're aging, I mean, I have things too that have let me down, and that, I mean, that is just the reality of having a body that is this many years old and it's repetitive motions. I mean, we are aging, right? So
Yeah.
it's hard. And that energy that comes from really loving what your body has done for you, even though some things may not be working the way they used to, it's it's like a nourishing energy, right? So hatred towards your body, hatred towards yourself and what you look like and whatnot, that creates like a tightness.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the tightness that feels like it's suffocating at times.
Yeah. And that's not where you are in your life right now. You're in a space of expansion.
Hmm.
You're in a
Yeah, that's right.
space of opening up yourself to who you are. And that means opening yourself up to your body. And you said that you have in the last year started to be able to do that.
Yeah, the last year I have started masturbating, giving self-love the first time in years. Um, and actually, I it was exciting. It was It was so exciting. The very first time I came, I thought, "Oh my God, my it was." I mean, it just blew my mind, and it was great. I suddenly realized, "Oh my goodness, my body can respond even to my touch, and if I can get to respond my touch, maybe it'll respond to others." And the funny thing is, it's almost addictive, Sam. You you do it once, you think, "Oh, I think I'll do that again."
Good. I mean, yes, pleasure. Like allow it, allow yourself as much pleasure as possible and your body is responding to that. And all of that is very healthy, good nourishment for you that your body has not had that nourishment for
Yeah.
so long.
I have to tell you something, I was quite embarrassed. I haven't actually told them, apart from one friend, this, but I actually bought some sex toys as well, Sam.
Good.
And I have to say, oh my goodness, clitoral stimulators, my God, awesome. But actually, those are things that even a year ago I've said, not a chance. But this year I've started exploring. Actually, why is it wrong to use things that actually bring you pleasure, that help you to find out how your body works? I have this beautiful organ that has been left alone for so many years that actually has been screaming out saying, come and see what I can do for you. And
Yeah.
it is very addictive.
Yeah, I love that. Good for you. I'm so proud of you for, giving the attention to yourself. You deserve that pleasure. There is no reason why you are not deserving of that pleasure.
That's really, that's really actually, it's funny because I think you're the first person who's actually said that in my life that it's okay to give yourself pleasure. And I kind of feel like almost it's almost like shocking, but I feel quite emotional. You saying that, it feels like affirmation. And I don't think I've ever been affirmed sexually ever in my life.
Well, I'm glad to be the first person to be able to have that conversation with you and say that to you. You absolutely deserve all the pleasure, all the amazing sex toys that give you the clitoral stimulation. Then there are the ones that do clitoral and internal at the same time, which, oh my God, those are also really exciting.
We'll
Um,
have to try those.
yes, yes, those are truly mind blowing. And you can have so much fun and feel so good, and it's such good nourishment for you just with yourself
Yeah, yeah,
as a place to start.
and it is a great place to start because I think I, the fact I'd be able to start exploring my body and touch my breasts, my vagina, my vulva, and my clitoris, it means that I'm beginning to understand my body. How can I go into a relationship and try to love someone else if I don't even know how my body works? And I'm definitely going to get those toys that you just mentioned.
Yeah, there's a couple that are really amazing. I can send you links afterwards.
Excellent.
And I'll add them into the show notes for anyone else who's interested. So I think, and the other piece that you said about, how do I know if I meet somebody, like, how do I know I'm going to be any good in bed? Right?
That's
Uh,
terrifying.
Terrifying. And what I want to say to that is, first of all, I mean, the fact that in the last year you have come so far in exploring yourself and being comfortable doing that and actually really allowing the pleasure, like so much that you're like, I'm going to go again, I'm going right back for more, is so fantastic. And, you're learning about your own body, and that is truly what you would need to do with a partner. So just
Right.
because you know your body, which is absolutely important, because somebody else is not going to know your body the way you do. And you're going to need to tell them what you like and what the right pressure is and what feels good. And that would be what you would need to do with somebody else as well. And then if
Okay.
there was a different person, that person would have a whole possibly different set of things that they like and the way they like to be touched. So there isn't just this massive educational piece that you're missing, because every person is their own entity in this area.
I think that's great because I don't know about you, but how your listeners, but when I got married, it was kind of like we should lie back and just think of Scotland kind of thing, and it's it's very unsatisfying. I don't think I ever, in fact, I know I never ever orgasmed during my 7.5 years of marriage, and I think what I'm looking for, what I'd really like to do, is to meet someone that I can say, can we try this, and do you like me doing this? Does this feel good? And I think I would like honesty. Honesty is so important to me, Sam.
So important.
It wouldn't it be great to be in bed with someone who says, "Do you know something? If you press just a wee bit harder, it'll be so much better."
Yeah. Yeah. That's what we need. Transparency. I think unfortunately what we learn is like a performative way of being sexual.
Yeah,
In heteronormativity, there are lots of women who just pretend that they're coming, but they're not orgasming.
yeah, yeah.
And
I did it all the time. Every time we had sex, I did that, and it just becomes routine.
yes. And as you move on sexually, just being performative is like you're not really in your body. You're not able to really be honest. There isn't that curiosity and exploration. You're just kind of like, all right, let's just get this over with as quickly as possible. Um, right? So,
That's absolutely right. And it's a case of like it does become a performance, and you dissociate and you go off, and I'm thinking, now what do I need to get in the shopping while he's at it?
yeah.
With a woman, one of the things I'd love, and I remember seeing so often, is that wouldn't it be great to stay in bed for 2 hours or 3 hours or 4 or 5, 6 hours with someone not even coming but just exploring and kissing? I mean, wouldn't that be amazing? I'd love to do that.
Yes. Honestly, that's like my favorite. That's my favorite thing. And with many women that I have worked with and also women that I have encountered, there is this sort of like sex means having an orgasm.
Yeah,
So when
yeah,
I treat couples and they come in and they say, we're not having sex, I say, what's your definition? Intercourse and an orgasm. It's like, oh my God, that's so narrow, you need to learn from gay people. That is like, you're missing out, because really with women, although I do find women who still feel this sort of pressure around the orgasm, which can really deter them from wanting to engage in sex, even if they came out later, even if they're partnered with a woman and they really enjoy the sex when they're having it, but they will be deterred from getting into it in the first place because of that feeling of pressure that they're going to need to have an orgasm, and they might be too
yeah.
tired and they don't want their partner to be let down, and they don't want to be let down. And if they don't have an orgasm, it means that they're broken, right? It's like there's still these messages that somehow come in, even in gay relationships. And
Mhm.
what I love is to just really take all of that off and to just think of sex as pleasure. Have you had pleasure? Does it feel good? Great. Then that's the goal, and that's it. There's no pressure for anything. It is zero pressure. It is pleasure. That's it.
That sounds wonderful. Because you're right. I mean, for me, what I've discovered over the last year, self-pleasure hasn't always been about orgasm. Sometimes it's been the excitement of discovering how your labia work, how it feels to be inside you with your fingers, and that can bring you pleasure not as an orgasm, but an whole body sensation.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to explore and there's a lot to find out. And then to take that pressure off of the orgasm,
Yeah,
just play,
yeah,
like playing and
yeah.
have fun. Playfulness and pleasure, no pressure. That's kind of my motto around sexual intimacy with yourself or with a partner.
I think that sounds wonderful. And what a great name to call it, playtime.
Yeah. Yeah. Like let's play later, when you
Mhm.
can say that to your partner. Hey, what are you doing at 4 o'clock? Let's play for a little while.
That
It's
sounds
fun.
brilliant.
Yeah. So, okay. So we started with the guilt and shame.
Yeah,
I mean, it feels like even though I know you're struggling with that, you really have pushed up against that this last year because you have moved into exploring yourself and being yourself and coming out to people. It might be hand in hand with this energy of you becoming who you are and being authentically who you are, and that there's still these remnants of the guilt and shame. I'm not sure for you if it's just that is so deeply ingrained from your learning, or if also it's from so many years of disconnecting from your sexual excitement.
Yeah, it definitely is. I remember years ago, even when I was married, watching a film and you would see a male and female having sex in bed in a film. And I'd be thinking, oh my goodness, she looks beautiful. And I'm sexually turned on. And then I think, oh, I can't feel like that. That's terrible. And I think the guilt is feeling of the denial. I feel so guilty that I denied my body this pleasure for 40 years. But I also feel guilty as a woman. I feel I failed as a gay woman because I didn't stand up and say, hey, by the way, guys, I actually like women. And so there's this conflict inside of this truth is of the internal feeling that I denied my sexuality within me, the feelings that it gave me, the feeling to be aroused, the feelings to be it's okay to be aroused and look at someone's breast and think, I really want to kiss those. And there's also this guilt of feeling that I let as a female who's always been a feminist, I find it really hard that actually I've been really guilty of actually denying my femininity in this way.
I hear you. And I really think underneath that guilt, there are other feelings. And one of them, I think, is more anger.
Yeah, yeah,
And I don't even know that it's anger just at yourself, but maybe anger at society, anger at your parents, anger at religious institutions, anger at these constructs that we have in society that had you in a place where you were terrified and so uncomfortable and really unable, in the case of your son, it sounds like, to, I mean, you might have lost custody, or
yeah.
that is valid to be really angry about.
Yeah, do you know, I think you actually have hit the nail on the head. I am angry. I'm angry at what I've lost. I'm angry of what they took away from me. I'm angry that they wouldn't accept me for me and instead constructed a me that was false and was a lie. And yes, I am angry at all those people that met society, parents, religion. I'm angry at all of it.
Yes. And that is so valid. And to me, that energy of that anger, which is like so valid and also so core, is something that if you allow yourself to really lean more into that, plus the sadness and the loss of, because of that, you
Mhm,
lost so much,
mhm.
you will be less guilty.
Okay, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how to do that, Sam, to be honest.
Yeah. I think journaling,
Okay.
writing out, like letting your anger out. Um, I mean, journaling is the way I typically do it.
I like journaling already, but I've never ever considered journaling about anger. I suppose because anger is something that was always embedded that women don't get angry. You
Exactly.
comply.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. There's all these ways that we were born with our emotional system intact, but then you learn very early that that's not okay.
Yeah,
And I mean, and again, like, look at other species, they don't learn that. They don't have a society telling them to not be how they are. They have instincts and they're born with them, and then they just live those out. And that's why the animal kingdom is perfect.
yeah,
Nature is perfection. But because we have these constructs that we're supposed to be living within, and if you're born female, you're supposed to be pleasant and you're not supposed to ever be angry. And in fact, you're supposed to walk down the street smiling with a really nice look on your face, so that when you walk past a man, he feels good looking at you. Literally, this is what we're taught.
That's absolutely right. And it's all about his pleasure,
That's
his
right.
needs rather than ours.
That's right.
And I think that's part of my anger, Sam,
Mhm.
is that it was all directed at everyone else except for me.
That's right. So I think turning it around and actually feeling your own anger and giving it a voice and journaling, letting your angry voice just write itself out on a page, and then maybe go back in with yourself, Angie, today, your authentic self, and validate that anger.
I'm definitely going to do that. I think I can't wait to actually start.
Good. Yeah, you don't need to hold that in. That's not yours. Let it out, validate it, and I think that your guilt will begin to lessen.
Yeah. And I'm hearing it for me, but I'm also hoping that women listening to this will also hear it for them. Because I know that inside I can feel this feeling of just joy at the thought I can actually get rid of this tension, this tightness in my chest that's been there for so many years. And I'm sure many of your listeners have experienced the same. And I hope that they're hearing what you're saying, Sam.
I hope so too. That's my idea here behind being on the show. So, is there anything else, Angie, that feels like we didn't get to touch it and you really wanted to ask me something? Anything else at all?
No, I think you covered everything, but one thing I would like to say, if it's okay, Sam, is what a delight and pleasure it is to talk to you, to actually have this opportunity to actually be real and genuine. And I would just want to say to your listeners, be real. Listen to this show. What Sam's saying is really get back. And I have to say, I'm going to get my book journal out as soon as this show's finished, and I'm going to start journaling. And Sam, thank you so much. This has been a true highlight for me and so helpful.
I am so glad. I feel so honored to have been able to have this real, raw, honest, authentic conversation with you. And I am so overjoyed that you are on your path and that you are coming into your authentic self and working on self love and self pleasure. It really does take courage to step off of that path and to do what you are doing. So thank you for sharing that with me and also with the audience here and with everybody in the world. It's just beautiful. I'm so glad to be a part of it.
Thank you, Sam. And yeah, thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Thanks for being on. Thank you for spending this time with me on Unbox Yourself with Samantha Fox. If this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a review. It helps more folks find these conversations. If you're ready to unbox from something that's keeping you stuck, I would love to support you. You can find the application to the show at unboxyoursexuality.com. Let's stay connected. Find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Lesbian Curiosity Coach. Give me a follow and join the conversation. Remember, we only have this one time through. Why not unbox yourself and let your true self shine in all its beautiful glory?